those years that we don't make decisions, we have homeless on our streets dying.
Coming up, 2.5 years after the death of homeless man Kelly Thomas on the streets of Fullerton, politicians are still trying to find an answer to end homelessness. We'll explain how the battle has transferred from the courtrooms to the desks of Orange County supervisors.
I have so much I can offer the world that I can't end it here.
A Southern California girl was diagnosed with cancer at 20 years old. Having overcome her disease, she's turning her experience into hope for others like her.
I really wanted to feel better. After smoking marijuana for the first time, I suddenly felt okay. I suddenly felt comfortable in my own skin.
And a former drug addict finds his calling working with a Jewish recovery center to inspire others to be drug-free. Hello and welcome to Studio 314. I'm Soni Lazor. We begin with a debate that's happening in our own backyard. Some attorneys call it one of the biggest cases Orange County has ever seen. As all eyes turn from Fullerton to Santa Ana, more than 2.5 years after the death of homeless man Kelly Thomas, officers Manuel Ramos and Jay Cicinelli were found not guilty of second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, and excessive use of force. But Kelly's story has more layers than just alleged police brutality. The county has made a goal to reduce and end homelessness, and the Board of Supervisors has a budget to help accomplish that task. Studio 314's Adam Herbets reports on politicians' efforts to tackle the issue.
These screams of Kelly Thomas did not put two Fullerton police officers behind bars.
That's absolutely not all right. I think that homeless have rights just the same as any other person of our community.
But they effectively restructured the city council, got rid of a police chief, and built an army. Overnight, Fullerton became one of the nation's spotlights for homelessness reform.
Fullerton has been a place of chaos.
If there was a ray of optimism out there, it was that for an invisible population, now people are noticing.
California Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva served as the mayor of Fullerton 2 times and spent 8 years on the city council before representing the area at a state level. She says the Kelly Thomas case still ignites the same passion from her constituents.
It still brings up those emotions that we saw those very first days over 2.5 years. How did this happen? What are we going to do about it? And what are next steps? But I think the more global issue that is not just a Fullerton issue and not just a county issue, but really a national issue is how do we treat our homeless?
Many members of Kelly's Army have now turned toward a new goal, the implementation of a year-round homeless shelter. Currently, Fullerton has a shelter run by the National Guard that houses them temporarily, only at night and during winter months.
I think Kelly Thomas brought some attention to homelessness and maybe interaction with police. I never saw this issue as really being a Kelly Thomas thing. This issue's been going on for 26 years. I know Kelly Thomas was homeless, but as Kelly Thomas's father has expressed several times in the media, and to me, Kelly wouldn't have been interested in going to a shelter anyways. Kelly wanted to be out on the street on his own. A lot of people don't.
In January of 2013, the Orange County Board of Supervisors voted to buy a furniture and mattress store in Fullerton to turn into what could have been the county's first year-round shelter.
It'll be like a sanctuary, somewhere to be where no one can bother you.
But by June, the city of Fullerton voted against the purchase. The Board of Supervisors had the option to move forward anyway without consent, but they chose not to.
Say a little over a year ago, I was sitting in the same chair, and we thought we'd have a homeless shelter, a year-round homeless shelter in Fullerton. What happened?
I told the city that I would work with them. I meant it. We went into it on that site. I had every reason to believe that they had asked because they wanted a solution. The public was engaged, the council voted, and now I'm left with trying to find a better solution.
One of the reasons the vote didn't pass, the city council said the proposed site was too close to Commonwealth Elementary School. Nelson argues that the current armory is also close to a school, and that finding the perfect site is very difficult. Members of Fullerton City Council are now partnering with Anaheim to try and find a location south of the 91.
Everyone says they want the problem solved, and everyone's a huge supporter of a solution so long as it doesn't involve them. The universal reaction tends to be not here, over there, and yet they can't really define where over there is. You know, my curse is I just know that over there doesn't exist.
Do you get the sense that Fullerton wants to solve this problem?
I think there is at least one city council member that has no interest in solving this problem. But the challenge is there a majority of council members that want the problem solved? They say they do, but when they had a chance to solve it, that's not what the vote was.
I assume you mean the former mayor, Bruce Whitaker?
Well, I mean, Bruce, in fairness, has made it pretty clear, at least to me, that he doesn't believe this is something the government should be involved in.
It would be more government employee driven, and I much prefer something that's much more nonprofit, volunteer, charitable driven. If there are jobs dependent on a certain number of homeless, governments like to create clients and maintain clients and manage clients. And so that's contra to the idea of reducing or eliminating homelessness.
Like Bruce Whitaker, and this is why I find it so odd that we're in disagreement on this issue, I'm a big believer in limited government, individual accountability. I don't want to waste resources. You know, spreading this stuff all over town in a very disorganized fashion is a waste of resources. That's not the most efficient way we can solve this.
A homeless shelter, unless it's considered short-term, transitional, then it becomes a problem in and of itself.
You know, to think that just providing help is inviting the problem, I don't believe that. I don't think that's what the models have shown when done properly. It wasn't thought up yesterday on the back of a napkin.
There is that school of thought. Don't just stand there, but do something. Even if it's not perfect, do it now. And so there's that sense of urgency. But the question I would pose, are we really looking at a long-term, more permanent solution? I believe homelessness should be an uncomfortable state of affairs to some degree, and that it should nudge people to move in the direction of their best good.
In those years that we don't make decisions, we have homeless on our streets dying. One of our homeless gentlemen, Ernest, and I only knew him by Ernest, used to go to the same coffee shop that I would right here on Chapman and Harbor. And so I got to know his story a little bit. And I just found out not more than a few weeks ago, he died. We have to start thinking differently.
I'm not aware of what is or isn't in Bruce's mind, but from the things that he says versus what I've seen, I don't think he's as educated on the subject as he might feel that he is.
At the end of the day, the story is about homelessness and a bunch of people sitting around arguing about it. But these three politicians at least agree on one thing.
We need to approach these things differently and have it be less talking, less words.
I'm into measuring results, not rhetoric. I don't really care how much people are talking about it. It gives me an idea that they're sensitive to it, but it's got to be backed up with something, or it's just more talk. A homeless person cannot get services from a good intention. They actually need a facility where people work and provide service.
Even if they found it tomorrow, you're still looking at a good, I would say at the least amount of time, year before doors would reopen, but you might even have to double that if there's construction involved, permits. The government does not move quickly, but I still think there's a fear, and the fear is that people don't know who the homeless are. So there's still that unknown of who are these people and do we want to let them into our community.
Adam joins us here in studio. So Adam, what does this story mean to you?
I mean, I'm a resident of Fullerton. I live right on the border of La Habra and Fullerton, and I remember when this all happened. I mean, I like to follow local politics. I go to city council meetings. I haven't seen city council meetings that are this packed with people. I mean, you saw a few shots of it in the package. But people really care about this issue, and it really strikes a chord with a lot of people.
And what did you find out was really the best way to help the homeless?
I'm not sure if anyone necessarily agrees on what a best way is. I think doing nothing certainly isn't the best way, and I think because so many politicians are arguing about what is the best way, obviously that doesn't solve any problems. And I think I agree with Sean and Bruce at the end. You know, words, can go out as many times as you want, but at the end of the day, something needs to be passed, something needs to be done, and hopefully that's going to be done soon.
So what's the latest decision from the politicians of what are they trying to do right now?
Well, in talking to members of Fullerton and Anaheim City Council, it looks like Anaheim has purchased a property near the Carl's Jr. Headquarters, right just south of the 91. Right now, they're kind of trying to see if they want to build a shelter. So there's not necessarily a building there right now, but they'd have to build it from scratch. That could be at least, a year out, but right now that's what it's looking like. I think the supervisor is pretty optimistic about that being a good location.
And is there any way that people can get involved to help if people are also interested in this topic?
Honestly, just talk to your politicians. I mean, send them an email, send them, a letter, go to city council meetings and speak your voice. And I think so many people have spoken up that they have no choice but to listen.
Right, and I mean, if you have anything to do with it, are you going to continue to follow this story?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be continuing to follow this story. Hopefully that property in Anaheim will be something that is usable, and we'll see where it goes from there. Obviously, there's a few legal loopholes and paperwork and that type of thing that they have to go through first.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing an update from you later on.
Thank you.
All right. So after the break, a woman's life-threatening experience transforms into a way to give back to others like her.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Being a 20-year-old means having fun and not worrying about the next step. But for a Southern California girl, her 20s were drastically changed. Madison Wade has more on how one young woman turned a scary situation into a way to cope and support those similar to her.
It was spring of 2013 when 20-year-old Cynthia Kaylee started to feel like something was not right.
The pain was so bad that I literally would crawl on the floor because I wasn't able to walk.
And the pain came at the prime of her youth.
I felt like I was on top of the world, I was going to school full time. I was in the best shape of my life. I, had everything organized.
But after a doctor visit, Cynthia's life changed right before her eyes.
He came into the room and he told me that we need to talk. And he said the word cancer. He said, you have stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma and you will go through 6 months of chemotherapy treatment.
Diagnosed at 20 years old, Cynthia and her family took the first steps in her battle against cancer, which meant taking her out of school, changing her diet, and cutting her hair.
It was like a hit, like a tornado. What's about to happen? I had to stop my entire life and focus on getting treatment.
Her cousin, a cancer survivor who was diagnosed only a year before Cynthia, was shocked when she heard the news.
I had just finished treatment, and then she was texting me saying I'm in the hospital, all that stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I really hope that it's not going to turn out what I think it's going to turn out. And she told me, she's like, it's lymphoma. I'm like, oh my God.
But there was hope for the long journey ahead.
I told myself, this is my life, and I deserve to live my life. And I have so much I can offer the world that I can't end it here.
5 days after her diagnosis, she started her first chemo treatment, and her family and friends were there for support. Cynthia's friend Taline decided to cut her own hair and donate it for someone else like Cynthia battling cancer.
It was like the least, honestly, it was the least I could do to show her my support and show her that losing your hair in return for getting your health back is nothing. So
we tried to keep it as normal as possible.
Yeah.
She was going through so much, and we would just sit down and look at pictures from let's say 3 months back, and we could not believe that it's her. She changed so much, and we tried to keep her old life intertwined with the new one.
But when her new life seemed hopeless and uncertain, Cynthia turned to a passion of hers to help her cope.
My doctor told me, find something you like to do to get your mind off this situation for even a second. So I realized that I love helping people, making people smile, being around people. So I went home and I said, what can I do in my weak state of mind? I can make bracelets. It's the easiest thing to do. It's always on your arm. You can always see it and remember something. So I went and I got beads and I made a bracelet. And I messaged all my friends. I said, I'm planning on doing this. Do you guys want to help me?
Cynthia started Beads for Battle, an organization where she and her friends make bracelets and send them all over the world to people who are affected and who battle cancer.
And I got a text from them saying, I have a surprise for you. I'm like, oh, what? And then she sends me a picture, and she's like started this whole, she like checked Facebook, and like this whole like organization that started. I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy.
All Cynthia asks for in return is their story, which she keeps in a photo album full of people from all walks of life.
This little boy was from Germany who had leukemia, and I got his information through a family friend, and I sent him the bracelet, and his mom actually sent us that picture and told us how happy he was when he saw it.
Making bracelets is not only therapeutic for Cynthia and her friends, but also a support system that lives on by a strand of beads.
I'm wearing her bracelets. They're so cute.
When she came up with an idea for Beads for Battle, it honestly brought all of us closer together as friends. And when you wear the bracelet, you get this good vibe, this energy that helps you move through every day to day. Whether we're not fighting cancer just as she was, but together we were fighting our own battles, and it helped us.
It felt really calming and like familiar to know that like right when I finished treatment, there was something that was out there to like support me and those like me and like spread awareness.
Cynthia and her team of friends and family send bracelets all over the world, raising awareness and raising funds for people struggling to survive.
We started off with one patient. The patient got back to me after I sent the bracelet, and she had Hodgkin's lymphoma too, just like me. And she was so appreciative of the fact that there's somebody who doesn't know her, who cares about her, and is willing to help her. So one patient led to another patient, led to a survivor, and that led to just a chain of, it was almost like a bridge from the cancer world to the actual world.
For Cynthia, Beads for Battle creates a bond between people like her and her own experience.
A lot of times when I receive a picture, it's so touching, looking at the patient wearing the bracelet and seeing how much it helps them. A lot of times the patient is happy in the pictures, and to smile during such a tough time is so difficult. To stay positive is so difficult.
Cynthia and her friends continue to get involved where they can and continue to fight for those battling the long road against cancer.
Madison is here with us today. So Madison, what's next for Cynthia?
Cynthia's in remission, so, she's just going through random doctor checkups, and she's feeling a lot better. She's back at school at LMU. She's a junior now because she had to take a year off. But she is full force into this organization. She sends bracelets almost every week to people who contact her specifically.
And I heard in the package that it's global. It's around the world. So how does that work?
It's totally global. She'll get, she runs it through a Facebook page. So she'll get these notifications from people or messages from people from Germany, China, Africa, a bunch of different countries. And even right in Los Angeles, Chris Brown actually asked for one. He has some connection to cancer. And so he asked basically to get a bracelet from her, and she designed one just specifically for him. It's black, it's got all this stuff on it,
So she does take personal requests for designs?
Yeah, she does. She has a bunch of charms. A lot of them she does like the color specifically for what type of cancer it is. So for her, hers was orange, but for breast cancer, it's pink. So, it totally depends on what kind of cancer the person is asking, for support for. Then she makes the bracelets for that color.
And how can others get involved? I know that she's the one making the bracelets and everything, but I mean, if anyone wants to help out, can they do so?
Absolutely. So everything is free. She just sends them. All she wants back is a story and a photo with the person wearing the bracelet, which I think is just an amazing, inspirational story just in general. She has an entire thing set up in her house, but she is accepting donations constantly. She doesn't ask for them necessarily, but if someone's willing to donate beads or whether it be string, whatever it can be, so that she can keep this going. When I was there, she had so much, though. It didn't seem like she was shortage of any supplies, but definitely money helps as well because she wants to make this a little bit more well-known and kind of gain foot a little bit.
Do you think aside from her little photo book that she has, is she going to do anything else with all the people that have gotten bracelets?
Yeah, she's actually gone and visited some of them too. It's hard to keep, sometimes these stories get really sad and someone passes, someone who connected to her. So I think a lot of the time she wants to visit the people that she can. She's also super busy. I mean, she's 21 now. So she, is full force into school. She wants to get her degree. So I think, she's kind of balancing a lot on her plate. But, when I talked to her, she definitely told me that she wants to travel and meet some of the people she's connected with already. But it's kind of like a pen pal situation, I guess. She writes to them, she talks to them on the phone as much as she can. So.
Well, thanks so much for being here. It's a great story. I'm sure that it's helping a lot of people cope. All right, well, up next, we'll take a look into the life of an addict. Stay with us.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
Addiction is a leading problem in today's society, and one Los Angeles native overcame his obstacles to help others avoid substance abuse. Leah Freeman has more on the story.
I really, really wanted to feel better.
Addiction, the one word that has become a common term in society, a disease affecting millions of Americans of all ages every year.
After smoking marijuana for the first time, I suddenly felt okay. I suddenly felt comfortable in my own skin.
For Doug Rosen, his journey began back in August 2004 when he arrived at Beit Teshuvah, a Jewish addiction treatment center in the heart of Los Angeles.
I had two choices. I could go to rehab or I could go live on the streets. And I chose rehab.
At 27 years old, things went downhill for Doug. He lost his job as president of a movie company and turned his focus completely to drugs.
When I had the opportunity to do drugs, I said no for many years until finally, it was just like, why not?
He knew he had to help himself. That was very important to him. He felt he was in really big trouble, and he decided that he's going to come here and he's going to do it.
Beit Teshuvah became Doug's second family, especially with many of his friends already living there. The center offers daily activities like group therapy, Alcoholics Anonymous, and music, which help bring everyone together.
I felt like it provided me an environment to grow in the ways that I needed to, in the ways that I never learned how to grow as a youth.
Judaism, also a key player in Doug's recovery process. He found his spiritual connection through the services and Jewish holidays offered at Beit Teshuvah.
Judaism has provided me a greater understanding of the human condition, why we think, why we feel, and what we do with those things. And it provided a spiritual context for me to understand myself through the teachings and the lessons and the values and the morals of what really means to be a good person. There are countless teachings that, I reflect on daily in my life, and they just really help.
Doug evolved over the years from a drug addict into a family man who met his wife in rehab. Doug has found meaning in life by sharing his experiences with others and being open about how he overcame his own drug addiction.
He's been so visible out in the country and in the community talking about what Beit Teshuvah does, that's how valuable what he does is and what he is.
70 to 80% of Beit Teshuvah employees have gone through the program themselves. Doug is just one example of this. He became the leader of the Partners in Prevention program, traveling the world to speak to teens about the risks of getting involved in drugs and alcohol.
Kids and parents both tend to look up to me because I'm right in the middle in their ages. And really what they look up to is that I'm reasonable. I look at each situation as an outside observer, and I'm reasonable in the solution.
Young people come out and feel comfortable in his presence and the way he runs something that they just speak out.
Doug's goal in speaking around the world is to share things with kids that he was never taught growing up, in hopes of preventing them from experimenting and getting hooked on drugs.
These are conversations about life, not about drugs, but about life and the reason why people do drugs that always need to be happening, and they just don't happen in our society. We don't have these communities anymore. We're all just in this rat race trying to, make it, where we're not pausing and really reflecting and growing as individuals along emotional and spiritual lines.
With Doug's help in the community and with such youth prevention programs, he hopes to see a difference in society and a step away from the use of drugs.
I just hope over the next 5 or 10 years that we as society, not just Jewish, but everyone, takes a step back and says, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to teach our kids? Where are they going to learn life skills, life choices, values? Who's teaching our kids the most important things about life? And that's what I hope we get.
And when it comes to his own sons, Doug plans to support and guide them in the direction of becoming the best possible men they can be.
I'm going to try to provide an environment rich in nourishment and values and support that lets them grow up into what they want to be and who they're meant to be.
As president of Bet Teshuvah, I am very proud to be part of this organization and this cause that changes people's lives.
I hope the rest of the world, the rest of America at least, really embraces that we need to make a change for the benefit of the next generations.
Leah's here with us in studio. So Leah, tell me, what was it like to hear Doug's story and all that he's done for this organization?
Well, it was a really inspiring story, especially coming from someone who has been at that center himself, and to see like how he turned his life around and, you know, how far he's come, where he was and where he is now. It's a really inspiring story.
And how is the atmosphere? I mean, all these people trying to recover together. That must be nice to have that kind of support.
Yeah, it just seemed like a big family, like as they mentioned in the package, it's very a family-oriented place. All the people work together. They're always, doing music together and group therapy together, and that's what really helps them. And I was there when they were all having lunch, and so I could see how they all interacted with each other and how everyone was like laughing, having fun, getting to know each other. And it was interesting to see, because I didn't know what to expect when I went there, and I've never been to a place or in a scenario like that, and to see, what it was like and, versus what I had maybe thought about it ahead of time. Like, it was interesting to see, like, how relaxed of an environment it was, and how great it was to see all these people working together to make something with their life.
Do you think that people who have recovered ever come back to kind of help the newbies out and help them get back on track because they've kind of done it for themselves? Is that a thing for, like, alumni of the Recovery Center to come back?
I'm sure. I mean, Doug being one of them, like, you kind of start somewhere and then you end up, along your path, you come back to where you started, kind of thing, to help, to give back to the community, and that's what he's doing. And everyone who works there, they mentioned that all the employees were people, or 70 to 80% of the employees were people that lived there originally and started in that program themselves. And so, it pretty much seems like everyone who is involved, had some sort of connection to Beit Teshuvah in the first place.
And do you think this is going to prevent younger people from getting involved in drugs?
I think what Doug's doing, I mean, for me personally, when I talk to him, he's very easy to get to know. He's funny, he has a good personality, and so seeing him and, what he probably does for students and kids, I can see where people can learn from him all the way, and how he can make an impact.
Thanks for being here, Leah. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You sure you don't want some? It's chamomile. Listen, you are extremely terrifying. Just the scariest undead subhuman thing on TV, and I really mean that. But I am worried that you could give my kids nightmares if they see you, so I'm gonna have to block you. So that's it. Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
There's no place like home, so why not make it travel size? German designer Peter Ebner, along with the help of some college students, came up with a design for a home of the future. These 3D printed houses are built for travel and convenience to place you wherever you want to live. Made out of sand and special binder, the vessels are approximately 50 square feet with a height of 10 feet. The cozy cabins will have just enough space to fit a bathroom, kitchen, and sleeping space. Ebner admits that the prototype was expensive to build, but he believes the cost of 3D printing will become much more affordable in the near future. Forget about spending hours in traffic during a daily commute when you can possibly live right next to where you work. That's all we have for you today on Studio 314. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Soni Lazor. See you next time.